This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Kathy Neifeld with AgencyONE. It is Friday, May 29th, and another month has passed, and I'm pleased to welcome you to our afternoon webinar. Today, we're going to be focusing on the e-app, Now What? We titled this Electronic, Easy, or Excruciating, and Bridget Flannery also reminded me that there was another E in that process, which was exhausting at times. I am pleased to present to you Bridget Flannery, our VP of New Business, and she is going to be introducing the session and moderating it with the case management team from AgencyONE. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat box, and Bridget or one of the case managers will address the question. If for some reason we're unable to get to you, we will respond after the WebEx has concluded. And I would appreciate it if you would stay on the line once the webinar is over for some additional announcements. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Bridget Flannery.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's call. You completed the e-app. Now what? Does E stand for electronic, easy, or excruciating? And the answer to that question is all of the above. Although the e-app is in fact electronic and sometimes easy, we have had our fair share of excruciating experiences. As you may or may not know, AgencyONE likes to be in control of the business we are processing. We like to be kept in the loop when things aren't getting done or need to be escalated. We like to jump in and push on exam issues and APS delays. We like to scrub apps and point out things that are missing ahead of submission. However, with some e-apps, primarily drop tickets, we lose some of this control. We do encourage e-apps, and we think they have their advantages, and they can work very well. But the point is really that you need to be aware that the process is different than traditional paper applications, and we still need your help to make the experience as pleasant as possible for your clients. Just so that you know, our team is in constant communication with both carriers and vendors to get business through as quickly as possible. We are also sharing feedback with IGO and Vive about issues we are seeing and enhancements that need to be done. We also routinely reach out to carriers and vendors to share both agent and client experiences, both good and bad, so that they know what is working well and where improvements can be made in the future. E-apps have come a long way over the last several years, but there is still a lot of work to be done, and that is why we felt it was important to cover this topic and highlight some of the following items. A couple of items I'd like to highlight before we get started. Lisa, if you can pull up the first slide.
Slide's not advancing for some reason. I'm working on it.
Okay. Hey, there we go. Okay, so just wanted to go over a few things with you. Prior to COVID, we were typically seeing an average of 60 IGO cases per month. During COVID, it has jumped up to 85 to 105, depending on the month during the COVID situation. Top carriers are Principal, which is about 30% of the e-apps we're seeing come in, followed by Lincoln at 17%, and John Hancock and Protective at 15%. Term is at 85% of our submissions, with permanent being UL, IUL, and SUL coming in at 15%. And just a fun fact, as far as our most popular states, Pennsylvania is definitely ahead of everyone else with 25% of business coming in through e-apps. We also have Vive, which is fairly new to our office. And during COVID, we've seen 40 new cases submitted, primarily with Principal and Prudential. Overall, for the year, we are having success with accelerated underwriting submissions, which I assume is based on good field underwriting by our agents, in addition to human API, which our underwriting department has been very active in communicating with you on. However, I do think that overall more clients could apply for accelerated underwriting programs than we are actually seeing. We've also started to use DocuSign where we can, which is an electronic signature process, and we are in the works to hopefully get that fully operational here soon. So today we have our case management team presenting some important details behind the e-app and the processes involved, along with our favorite carriers and the agents we are seeing much success with and some of the mistakes and challenges we see as well. If we can turn the page or turn to the next slide. So the first area we'd like to highlight are the e-platforms available through AgencyONE. The AgencyONE team is working within these systems on a very regular basis and has a pretty good understanding of both. Tara is going to walk us through things to consider with both of our e-platforms. Tara, take it away.
Thank you, Bridget. First, please understand there are many variations with e-apps, the submission types, the processes for each, what each carrier offers, and your case manager is always available to discuss these with you. But for today, we are mostly discussing e-apps in general terms. There are two major e-platforms, which are IGO and Vive, and both are available under the New Business tab on the AgencyONE website. I just want to briefly touch on some pros and cons for each. Starting with the pros of IGO. AgencyONE will receive a copy of any paperwork completed and submitted, which gives us a reference point. Most of the cases come to AgencyONE for review before we release to the carrier, so we can identify any major issues, such as licensing or contracting errors. There are more submission choices and options for control with the full e-app versus the abbreviated app versus the drop tickets, and there is a larger variety of carriers available as well as both permanent and term product options. Some cons associated with IGO include the larger variety of submission choices, while potentially beneficial, can also be overwhelming and confusing. It's important to understand the differences of those options and which is the best choice for your particular case. For example, if applying for accelerated underwriting programs, a particular option may be required, such as the PruFast app or Express worksheet, rather than the full e-app. Or if your client doesn't want to complete a phone interview, you would need to complete a full John Hancock e-app versus their drop ticket. So it's important to make sure you select the applicable e-app option for each case, and your case manager can always assist you with this prior to submission. Another con is the fact that some of the e-app options require e-signatures, which can potentially hold up submission. It's important to notify your client when an e-signature is required, which is usually with the full e-app options and some of the abbreviated versions, so they can be on the lookout for the email and check their spam folder. If the owner is different than the insured, which isn't even an available option for all e-app types, the owner will also need to e-sign. That includes if the PI is signing on behalf of an entity, which is generally not preferred, but in that case, the client would end up e-signing twice. Once as the PI and once as the owner. And finally, the agent will need to e-sign. It's important to note that you can follow the status of the e-signature process by logging into your IGO tool. This tool will show you who has or has not completed the e-signatures, let you resend the e-signature links, or unlock the link if it's timed out and know if there are any delays. Just so you know, your case manager is not aware of a case until all e-signatures are completed, so it's crucial for you to follow up on the status until submission is complete. Now for Vive, starting with some pros. The e-app process is fairly uniform and includes only a drop ticket version, which makes for a very brief and simple submission for you as the agent. There are no e-signatures, so as soon as you drop the ticket, the case is submitted. The case is automatically submitted to the carrier or their third-party vendor, so there is no delay, although it's important to understand some carriers still have a slow turnaround time to set up the case and initiate requirements depending on their process. For example, John Hancock still has to manually set up the case in their system before the phone interview is initiated with their third party, so it may take 4 to 5 business days before the client is even contacted. Some of the cons with 5 include the dashboard. Ideally, the dashboard should allow both the agents and AgencyONE case managers to track the status of a case from beginning to end, but it is very unclear and lacks significant detail, making the tracking process extremely difficult. As the automatic submission to the carrier was noted previously as a pro, it is also a con in that case managers are not able to check for processing issues, such as an LMC error, which could result in rejection by the carrier and the need for a new ticket to be submitted. There is a helpful client data form available you can have your client fill out to assist you in completing the drop ticket. However, there is some pertinent information not requested, so it's important to still complete your regular field underwriting. And also question 7 regarding whether the client has ever been diagnosed with or received treatment for a list of specific medical conditions is very poorly laid out and easy to misinterpret, so it would be beneficial to go through the list in detail with your client. And finally, for a boutique agency that prefers to control every aspect of our cases, 5 gives almost complete control to the carrier and/or their third-party vendors. These cases are meant to go through the carrier's process as set, and it's difficult to intervene, modify, or request exceptions when something doesn't go as planned. A general con that can arise for both IGO and VIVE is when a case is approved other than applied or a different direction is desired. With many carriers, we have limited access to documents, especially exams or APSs the carrier may have ordered, which then makes it difficult for underwriting to review the case and figure out an alternate plan. Overall, it's just important to weigh the pros and cons and determine the best platform and process for each specific case. Keep in mind, some of these processes are very new and are constantly changing, so it's helpful to be flexible and prepared when using IGO or VIVE.
Thank you, Tara. Okay, so now that we know what is available to you as far as submitting business, let's get into a bit more detail about the processes. And for that, we have Melissa here to touch on.
Thank you, Bridget. Every carrier's process is different, and many carriers even have multiple options. VIVE orders and drop tickets are automatically submitted to AgencyONE and/or the carrier. E-applications require e-signatures from the proposed insured, owner if applicable, and the agent. Links will expire if not completed in a timely manner. AgencyONE is not aware of the case until all e-signatures are completed, so it is important for the agent to keep track of the cases via their IGO login until the status indicates it is pending with the BGA. If changes are desired, the agent must unlock the e-app, make the corrections, and then e-signatures will need to be reobtained. Cases are submitted to either the carrier or a third-party vendor. Phone interviews, if needed, are generally the first step. A few carriers have online paperwork as an alternative. There is an AgencyONE prep sheet to help prepare your client for what is expected. If accelerated underwriting eligible, carriers will then generally run internal reports. If an exam is required, most carriers will automatically order as part of the process, but your AgencyONE case manager can confirm. APSs, when required, are sometimes ordered by the carrier, but more often ordered by AgencyONE. Some doctors' offices will not accept e-signed HIPAAs, so be prepared for your case manager to request you to obtain a wet-signed HIPAA from the client. Delivery processes, some carriers automatically use e-issue delivery, while others offer in certain situations only, or possibly not at all.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, so now let's cover some of the carriers. We realize that each agent and their key office personnel may have their own favorite list of carriers, but the case managers here at AgencyONE have their list of favorites as well, and you should always feel comfortable reaching out to them ahead of time to see who the strongest performers are right now. In addition to knowing which carriers are the most efficient at processing e-apps, we also know who's keeping up with the volume and which ones may be falling behind. Sasha will be touching on some of our favorites. Take it away, Sasha.
Hi, everyone. So the first one I want to go over is Principal. They offer a drop ticket option as well as a full e-app. The process is generally pretty smooth, and the client can complete the app and the non-med either over the phone or online, so it's nice that they can have both options. They can even call in prior to the ticket being submitted to complete the medical portion. Principal will send out automated emails to us, which are pretty reliable and useful. They're definitely seeing the majority of e-submissions coming from AgencyONE, both via Vibe and on the iGo platform. They have an excellent accelerated underwriting program since out of the majority of other carriers, they have been offering it the longest. The only hiccup that I've seen, though, is if agents do not request accelerated underwriting on the drop ticket or the full e-app, even if it fits the parameters, Principal won't automatically review it as such. It can be fixed on our end, it just causes more delay. Currently, due to the COVID situation, we've been told that case managers at Principal are at 3 times their normal caseload, so underwriter reviews have been delayed and we have seen more hiccups in recent months. But that being said, they are managing volume fairly well and continue to be one of our favorites. All right, the next one is Protective. They're another great carrier. They offer a very simple drop ticket and will contact your client to complete the phone interview and the non-med. They allow the client to sign their phone application via voice signature, which is pretty cool, and that avoids them having to send a link to the client and wait for them to e-sign. All cases automatically start as accelerated underwriting, so you don't have to worry about clicking AUP. But if an exam or any APSs are needed, they will order them and they'll follow up with the client and the medical facility, and they'll even provide us with copies of all the documents they obtain, including lab results, in case we need to direct the case elsewhere. We have good communication regarding status with our assigned case manager with them as well. All right, my next carrier is Banner. Even though they're not a strong carrier from an underwriting standpoint, they do offer a very simple and straightforward e-process, very similar to Protective. A drop ticket is submitted with very basic information, and once it's submitted, Banner will call the client to complete the phone interview. They also allow the client to sign the application via voice signature like Protective. After underwriter review, if the client did not qualify for accelerated underwriting, Banner will also order the exam or any needed APSs and will provide us with copies once the case is approved and being sent to issue. If the underwriter needs to collect any additional medical information, they'll directly reach out to the client so that way we or you don't have to. Okay, so now if you know your client will not qualify for accelerated underwriting, American General has a pretty simple and hands-off process as well. The drop ticket is submitted with minimal information like the others, and then AgencyONE, which is their third-party vendor, they will contact the client to complete the phone interview and the exam. Our office is provided with copies of everything, and once everything has been completed, the file gets transferred to American General for review. Our agency will then order any APSs if needed. They also offer a great website that's very detailed, and the relationship we have with their case management team is excellent. Just some side notes, the carriers that share information with us so our underwriting department can get involved when something is other than applied for or declined is such a big deal, and it can really help us with negotiations. And the last thing I wanted to touch on is that not every case is meant to be a drop ticket. If you are submitting multiple cases on the same insured, all with different owners, or if you have a very complicated business case, please do consult with your AgencyONE case manager prior to submitting, as we wouldn't want there to be any confusion or delays at the carrier. All of us have the knowledge to be able to steer you in the direction that will be the easiest and quickest for you and your client.
Thank you, Sasha. Okay, so we are truly seeing success with e-apps for many of our agents. If you aren't super familiar with submitting electronic cases, Robin would like to share her thoughts on what makes an agent successful. Take it away, Robin.
Thanks, Bridget. Hi, everyone. In my experience, our most successful agents use our qualification checklist, which can be provided to you by your case manager, and field underwriting to have a better reality of their client fitting into the parameters. Also, our successful agents prepare their clients for the process, which includes the phone interview, the possibility of an exam and labs, the expected turnaround time, being aware of carrier backups due to COVID and staffing issues, other arbitrary issues such as random holdouts, which some carriers just pull applications for full underwriting, not qualifying for accelerated underwriting, additional information being needed throughout the process, and frequently being asked for the same information more than once. Lastly, our website has many tools that our successful agents use to make this process easier for both themselves and their clients. Be sure to check them out if you're not already using them. Ultimately, our most successful agents use our team to help them be successful. We are here to help you.
Thank you, Robin. So we do realize the apps and the processes involved are not always as easy as one would like to think. That being said, Liz would like to highlight some of the mistakes and challenges we come across on a regular basis in hopes of helping you as you prepare to submit your next case.
Thanks, Bridget. So if you've ever done an onboarding or webinar with me, one of the things that you'll probably hear me say a lot is we want you and your client to have a great experience with this whole process. And one of those things is trying to avoid some of these challenges and pitfalls that we're finding and that we're seeing more recently just because of the amount and the volume of e-apps that we're seeing coming in. So first of all, you know, we're manually entering in these drop tickets. We're putting in the data ourselves. The agents are putting it in. You know, just making sure we're double checking and making sure the email addresses and the phone numbers are entered correctly, because we use the carriers use those to contact the client, and if the client's not getting contacted, we get all the time, you know, my client hasn't been contacted yet, you know, or whatever the excuse is. We just want to make sure that the data is entered correctly and they're getting to the right person. Also, to kind of piggyback on what Sasha and Robin were saying about meeting the parameters, we have the accelerated underwriting spreadsheet that's on our website. Julie's been updating that constantly. If we can just make sure that you're looking at the parameters and making sure we're not submitting an application to the carrier and hoping that it's going to get through accelerated underwriting, and we would have known up front, had the parameters, that it wouldn't have gone. So we just want to make sure we're looking at the guidelines, the accelerated underwriting guidelines and the temporary COVID guidelines. So we have two different guidelines going on here. Also, making sure you know your client, and if your client has a medical impairment, and not sending the case in hoping for accelerated underwriting when you know your client has a history of diabetes. You know, that the carriers are willing to make exceptions and get these cases through on good risk. So we want to make sure that we're not sending the expectation that we're going to be able to get everybody through without exams, but we'll try our best. But knowing if your client has a pre-existing condition and a medical impairment is probably going to prevent them from going through accelerated underwriting. Also, each of the carriers has their own field underwriting guides and checklists that go along with the interview prep sheets that we also send. But making sure that your client's not a foreign national that might automatically kick them out of an accelerated program. They're over or under the age limit, or any of the impairments that could just automatically kick them out. So just knowing those things up front, so we're not getting any surprises on the back end. And also making sure we're setting the expectations. I know kind of Robin and Sasha touched on this before, but making sure you know the process and you have then relayed the process to the client. So what happens after the telephone interview? Well, then the underwriter reviews it. Well, what happens if they don't make accelerated underwriting? What's next? Do you order the exam? Does the carrier order the labs? I mean, do you think we can get through with using digital data instead of having the client have an exam done? You know, all these things, we're here as a resource for you to let you know what the next steps are, so you can let your client know what the next steps are, and just know that we're here to try and get the case across the finish line. And if the goal is to try and get it done without an exam, you know, we're going to try and make that happen with the digital data, ordering the APSs, and doing those sort of things. So setting the expectation with your client of saying, hey, you know what, we may not be able to get through accelerated underwriting through the normal route, but you know, here's the next step, and we're going to try and get it done this way. And just making sure that your client's prepared to go the long haul and get it done. And also, lastly, just picking the right carrier up front. We know that carriers have niches, and if you are doing all the other things, you're doing the field underwriting, and you know your client has a build issue, or they have sleep apnea, that we can point them in the right direction, in the right carrier, so we're in the right spot. So if we can at least start in the right spot, and we know that we're at the right carrier, then we can work from there through the accelerated process. And then, like with the accelerated sheet, we can get through maybe without exams, maybe without labs, using the digital data and using APSs and our underwriting knowledge here to try and push this across the finish line. But those are what some of the challenges and mistakes that I'm seeing, but we're seeing a lot of success with agents as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Liz. So you are more than welcome to reach out to your case manager after today's call. But I did want to check to see if we have any questions at this time.
So Bridget, we do have a question.
Okay.
And the question is there any way you can have some influence over the amount of data allowed for upload? 15 megabytes on many IGO submissions, when illustrations can be as large as 25 megabytes, and then trusts need to be added and cover letters, etc., that there doesn't seem to be enough memory available to submit all of the documents.
Yes, we absolutely can. We are part of the iPipeline advisory board, so we can certainly relay that. I will tell you that they are looking to connect the illustration system to the IGO platform, which would allow us to obtain electronic signatures for the illustrations as well. There's a lot of work that's being done on that as well as the attachment end. I will certainly relay that information to iPipeline as a challenge that you're seeing. So absolutely.
Thank you. If anybody has any additional questions, I think another one just came in. Hold on one second. Oh, and Tara, you see that, Bridget? Tara saying
yes,
in the meantime, able to send your
please,
attachments to your case, who can pass them along to the carrier.
Absolutely.
If you could repeat that, because you were cutting out.
Bridget?
Yes, so Tara just said, in the meantime, just because we know that there are challenges with the size of the attachments, please feel free to send that information to your case manager, who will then make sure that it gets to the carrier properly. So, but in the meantime, but that's just for the meantime. In the meantime, we will make sure that your feedback is relayed to iPipeline.
Okay, I do not see any other questions at this time, so I would like to take this opportunity to thank Bridget and all of the case managers at AgencyONE. Again, if you've got any questions, please reach out to your case manager or to anyone at AgencyONE. We are all happy to help you get these cases across the finish line and do whatever we can to make sure that business continues to flow smoothly during this time period. We have another webinar coming up on Monday, which is, we're going to be featuring Joe Ross from American General. He's the Vice President of Sales Productivity. Joe is one of our favorite speakers, and I promise you this is going to be a lively and informative conversation and presentation. Joe's presentation is going to be on the Secure Act, and you are going to learn things about the Secure Act that I know that you do not currently know, because Joe has pulled it apart and put it back together. And during this time period, when people are thinking about their retirement and how they're going to allocate money in retirement and what did the Secure Act do and not do for them, Joe is going to give you some tips and some insight that I'm sure you're going to find very valuable. So Lisa will be sending out that invitation later this afternoon. So I hope everybody will register for Monday at 12 o'clock. With that, I want to thank everybody for their attention. I hope everybody has a fun and happy weekend, and I hope the weather is good for all of you. Again, I want to thank the phenomenal case management team at AgencyONE. And with that, we're going to sign off. So thanks, everyone. Take care.